Welcome. If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. Today's replay episode is packed with insights to help you feel more grounded. Well, this episode with Melissa Romano came out originally during holiday season. It felt really timely for people to re-listen to right now because for many of us, summer is full of constant shifts in our schedules and in our routine. And while it's a lot of fun, it can also feel really disruptive, including to our nervous systems. So this conversation is a deep dive into helping people feel that they can move from feeling chaotic and out of control to more calm and self-connected. Melissa and I dive deep into why understanding and caring for your nervous system matters for women, especially during times of mental overload and transition. I hope you have many great takeaways. Real quickly before we get into the episode, I wanted to let you know that the interest list is open for Season to Shift, my signature 6-week mastermind for busy moms who are done living on autopilot and they want to reclaim a sense of self outside of the roles they play. They want to reconnect with their inner knowing and remember what makes them feel good, what lights them up, what brings them energy, and practice that in a community. If this sounds compelling to you, I encourage you just to sign up on the interest list. You're not signing your name in blood. It just means that when the doors officially open, you'll get information. You can find a link in the show notes to this episode for Season to Shift interest list. All right, let's do this. Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know in your own journey that you were doing a lot of healing and growth, but it felt like your modalities and wisdom didn't really click and fully come together until you came across this nervous system piece. Can you take us to that time in your life and tell us kind of how that went down?
Absolutely. The nervous system piece is like the glue that held together everything I had felt and known about the mind, the body, the spirit, right? It was like I had done all of these practices, and I'm sure like so many others, I kept looking to, the next modality, the next guru, the next whatever that was going to be the key that unlocked it all. And for me, that was the nervous system. I'd take, a couple of steps forwards and feel better, and also still be like, there's something missing. There's more for me out there. Like, this is not where I'm meant to hold. Like, okay, yeah, I learned how to eat, and, I learned different things that I could do to help support myself in survival. Where was the living? Like, where was the living? And that's where the nervous system I started to come alive. I started to feel alive. I started to feel like a more active participant in my life instead of somebody that's just like checking off the boxes of getting things done.
Yeah, I remember reading something that you wrote about how you were talking to someone, maybe in some sort of, someone who is supporting your journey, who is complimenting you on how resilient you were. And you're like, I don't want to be resilient. I want to live.
I actually had a therapist say that to me, like, that the whole, you go in at first and you give them the whole rundown of your life. And I said it all without emotion. I just gave her the synopsis of all of this trauma and all of these experiences without emotion. And she was like, you're so resilient. And I burst into tears. I was like, I am so tired of hearing that. Great. I mastered survival. I need to figure out how to live.
So when it comes to nervous system, what are a few foundational basics you wish every woman understood? Because I feel like my listenership is coming to this conversation from very different understandings.
The one thing, or a couple of things that I think are really important. One, we used to look at the nervous system like a switch. Fight or flight, rest or digest. It was like you were in fight or flight, or you flip that switch down to rest or digest. And it is much more complex than that. And we don't need to look at it like, how do I constantly get myself to rest and digest? How do I not constantly? We're focused on becoming calm. And with the nervous system, we are going to consistently fall short if that's what we're saying. I want to be calm. We want to have a flexible nervous system. So you want your nervous system to flexibly go into fight or flight, or into that lowered dorsal vagal, which is in that rest or digest. It can plummet all the way down to freeze, but we want to flexibly be able to move through the states of the nervous system and come back to our homeostasis, our baseline, easily, effortlessly. So it's not something that we are trying to flip this switch on or off and get to calm.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I feel like there's some confusion about whether or not people have, like, they're in a state of chronic dysregulation and that's impacting their whole system, or people talk about, I became dysregulated and it's like on and off. And I think that's a point that I know it goes a little deep, but I'd like to unravel that with you a little bit because I think it's important to make that distinction.
We need to learn to discern between activation and dysregulation. So, the way that I teach it, regulated means to me connected. So, regulated means connected. You are connected to your internal experience yourself. You are connected to this time and space, right? The present moment, the room that you were in, the day and the time that is happening in front of you. And you are connected to the living things around you. That's regulated. You can feel grief and be regulated. You can feel anger and be regulated. So all of those emotions can exist in that space when you are connected to self, the present moment, the people and living things around you. Dysregulated is when our internal experience, our nervous system is activating and it is not in sync with the environment and present moment around us, right? So if someone is yelling at me and I freeze a little, I shut down, I go numb, that is activation, not dysregulation. If I spill my coffee and instead of like mild irritation, I am enraged or on the verge of tears, that's dysregulation. My internal experience, my nervous system activation is not in sync with the moment in front of me.
It's almost disproportionate. Is that fair?
Proportionate is fair. Yes, absolutely. It's hard to use that word because we judge ourselves so harshly that we'll think that everything that we feel is disproportionate. But it is like we often are calling very authentic, valid responses dysregulation. If my house is on fire, I am not going to stand here and calm my nervous system before I leave the house, right? I want that activation so that I can get everything that I need to do and get out of Dodge.
I think a lot of women become almost good actresses. They learn how to live in a chronic state of stress and overwhelm. Can you help us understand what's normal and what might be some tells for women to kind of understand if they are in this state of dysregulation chronically or at least regularly?
First, we have to start with how it feels on the inside, not how it looks on the outside. And we were trained as women, we were trained, right? We were domesticated to present, I'm holding it all together, even if I am under an immense amount of stress. So how people could perceive me is different than my internal experience. So when we are talking about this, we're talking about the internal experience, how it feels on the inside. So with dysregulation, if you get a moment to yourself and you can sit down on the couch and you feel like crawling out of your skin or running away, we're looking at dysregulation, right? If you feel like you are transported to different times in your life, like something activates in your system, and in that moment, you feel like a small child. That's dysregulation. That is the brain. So we are having this experience, right? Where it's like, oh, they made me feel small, or oh, they made me feel like like I was a kid. What's happening is all of that information, your environment, all of that input comes into the brainstem first. So it comes into the nervous system first, into your internal world, into the nervous system through your senses. That's where all of that information comes first, not in our thinking mind, but in our feeling experience, right? So all of that comes in. And what happens, instead of making its way from the bottom up to our cortex, where we have all that logic and reason, and we can tell time, right? We know the difference between today and 10 years ago. That information doesn't make it there. That information gets stuck somewhere in that limbic region, in our emotions and our memories. And in that moment, we are that small child. It's not that they made us feel like this. Our nervous system activated and we are transported to a small child. So we are no longer responding to this world as ourselves. We are reacting as a past version of self. That is that internal. And you may be looking like that adult woman on the outside in the meantime, but the internal experience.
So I know that you work with clients in a lot of capacities. You have your vagus nerve deck. I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about strategies to proactively heal or tone our nervous system. And if you can talk a little bit about toning in general, like what does that mean? Is it like toning a muscle?
Essentially, yes. And I love to frame it in that way. And also I love that you're asking all of the right questions, right? Like, how do I proactively do this? Because otherwise, if you came to me and you said, if I were a marathoner and you're like, Melissa, tell me how to run a marathon. And I gave you all of these like tips and tricks and told you start to finish how to run the marathon. And you took great notes and you waited until marathon day, how do you think that's going to go? And even we're making it even harder on ourselves because in this scenario, we are trying to not use our old coping skills or our maladaptive coping skills. So we're trying to not do something. So it's the equivalent of you stepping up to that marathon and me saying, give me your trusty sports bra, your favorite hair tie, and your running shoes. Go.
Yes. Well, and also what's coming up for me, I teach meditation as one of my important tools. And people sometimes will only try to meditate for the first time when they're in crisis. And I really encourage people, I'm like, there's no bad meditation, but being a crisis meditator is not the perfect way to set yourself up for it to be a tool that's supportive for you.
There are no bad meditations. Like, great, you stepped up and you tried to run the marathon. You're making it really difficult on yourself when you skipped all of those days of training outside of that crisis, right? Outside of race day. So when it comes to the nervous system, we want to look at it like it's called the allostatic load. So the allostatic load is the wear and tear on our nervous system. So if your nervous system has had a lot of wear and tear, if you are a woman, you have a high allostatic load. There's a lot of wear and tear, chronic stress, trauma, you name it, right? So the wear and tear of the nervous system means that it is going to be knocked off course easier and have a harder time coming back to that homeostasis. So when we look at doing these practices, we are looking at decreasing the wear and tear, lowering that load. We are strengthening the nervous system so that it then becomes super flexible. It doesn't get knocked off course as easy and it bounces back much quicker. A couple things that I really focus on, and it almost sounds silly, is orienting to your space. So I talk about it a lot as in that part of the brain cannot tell time. meaning it does not know the difference, right? Our brainstem, our nervous system, the only language that it speaks is, am I safe or am I unsafe? There is no telling time. There's no understanding that was in the past. This is in the present. That is in the future, right? It is, am I safe or am I unsafe? And if we don't pass that safe test, it goes haywire. We are reacting to life instead of responding. So when we practice regularly, day to day, orienting to our time and space, I'm taking a pause. I know that this is what time it is. This is what day it is. Here is what I can smell around this room. Here is what I can taste. Here's what I can reach out and feel. Here's what I can hear, right? Here's what I can see. When we practice that regularly, and you would be shocked at how little you actually do that in your day. We might look at the time in a panic, like, what do I have to do next? What did I not get done yet? Right? What has already happened in the past and what has not happened yet in the future? We are not spending any time here in the present. And when we are activated, when we are triggered, we have to get ourselves there as quickly as possible. When that becomes a common thing for us to do, every time I walk into a new room, I orient myself to my space. I work from home, so I'm in the same rooms all the time. And I still do it every time I walk into the kitchen. I look around. What can I smell? What can I touch? What do I notice? Same thing with my internal experience. What do I feel? And that one can get a little bit trickier. I always recommend starting with.
Yeah. I just want to reflect that back to you because I think I always in my episodes, I like to have, some wisdom and inspiration, but I feel like it's nice when women feel like they walk away with something they can literally try after they listen. So I feel like one thing I kind of practice is peace breaks. It's just like a couple minutes, almost like a buffer between going from one, portion of my day or meeting to the next. And I feel like for some people sitting there, it's almost like they need something to anchor. So I love that. Like stepping into a new room, just take it in through your five senses. You're adding that time piece. So help us understand. You just feel like we need to be like, this is what time it is. This is what day it is. That's new to me. So help me understand that a little bit more.
You are orienting yourself to the present moment. So we have the senses, right? It's not necessarily about the time or date. It is retraining your brain to come back to you right now,
Mm-hmm.
today, at this moment.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Okay. What else is kind of maybe something that's unexpected when you're working with women that is something they can integrate into their day to day without it feeling like, oh, now I've got this big nervous system to do? Because I feel like so much of it is that it's just, if we can just weave it into these small moments that become our days, then we start to build that foundation and we don't need another hour at night.
Right. The breath. And a lot of people balk on this, and a lot of people have trouble with breath work. And I think that is because we've not learned how deeply connected the breath is to the vagus nerve. When I look at it, the breath can serve as the vagal brake. So think of it like the handbrakes on a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
And you exhale, you are applying the brakes. When you inhale, you're letting off the brakes. So if you are in your body, in your nervous system, if things are going too fast, if you are in hyper arousal, if you are feeling like your heart is moving too fast and your breath has become really shallow and everything's moving too fast, I'm having anxiety. And somebody says, take a deep breath and you inhale, it is going to feel terrible. Because it's going to speed things up. However, if focus on
Mm-hmm.
exhale, you will start to slow down, right? So doubling that exhale is applying the brakes. Now, on the other side of that, if you are in hypo arousal, if you are feeling stuck, frozen, overwhelmed, I can't, or just low energy, I can't do anything. I'm stuck here. You focus on that inhale, right? Let the brakes off. That's where you want those big inhales. So extending, doubling the inhale. And I think that is such a simple thing. It was such a simple thing for me because me and so many others, when we experience trauma, it's almost like one day we went and then the breath stuck there. Well, I'm still talking to you. I'm still existing in a space. I'm still going, but my system has been wound up, right? There was no brake system. So then again, if somebody said, take a deep breath, I would take this deep breath and I'm like, oh, I'd feel like crying or I felt worse. When I learned this simple thing, like, oh, it's the exhale, it's still the breath. It's still so, so, so powerful, knowing the difference of what I needed in those moments.
I love this because it's kind of slightly obnoxious, even when I try, like, I'm sure everybody who's a mom who's listening has told their child to take a breath because it's just, okay, let's take a breath. And nobody really, it likes to be told that either.
Like I'll say, my son's 9, he's a little older now, so he knows the length. What we started with, if I saw him moving real fast and he's screaming, we would do like blow your hot chocolate as if you're holding hot chocolate and you're trying to cool it off. You're focusing on that exhale.
Yeah, that's a beautiful distinction. And again, something where a mom or any woman or anybody can step into a bathroom and take a few exhale focused breaths.
Again, moving through your day, just checking in with yourself. What feels good to me right now? And then taking a couple of those. You feel like you need to release the brake a little bit and speed things up. You feel like you need to slow things down. Like check in every hour. Give yourself 10 seconds.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah, because sometimes, I'm usually in the camp where I need to anchor and slow down. I'm pretty high energy, but I know that some people, maybe you're lethargic. Maybe you've got to write something for work, but you had a bad night's sleep and you need a little pep. So I appreciate you, giving us some tools on both sides of that spectrum. One thing I want to make sure I touch on, it's a little bit different, but is body neutrality. It's a topic you talk about a lot. How do you see a relationship between the nervous system and body neutrality?
Again, all of this input, all of this sensory input, all of the things we experience life through our body first. And when we don't have body neutrality, when we have a negative body image, when we feel really disconnected from our bodies, when we don't like our bodies, when we're unkind to our bodies, we are filtering information through a filter that does not belong there. And we disconnect ourselves intentionally. Nobody wants to spend time in something that they don't feel good in. So when we remove ourselves from our internal experience, right? It's basically like you just take yourself up into your head or even outside of yourself. We are not able to experience anything. And we may be trying to shut down, the more uncomfortable emotions. We maybe are trying to avoid feeling despair, or we're trying to avoid feeling sad, but we can't pick and choose what we're filtering through there. We close that road down. So we're not going to feel the joy either. We're not going to feel, right, the connection. So body neutrality removes the canyon that we created between a negative body image trying to jump this canyon into a positive body image, which that's a leap. That's a leap that feels unattainable. Remove the barrier. When we come to neutral, and we have to come to neutral first anyway, before we could even get anywhere over there to like, I love what that looks like on the other end, but body neutrality takes us to this space where this is my body. These are my hands. These are my elbows. These are my knees. These are my feet. When I am in there, I have a much easier time getting up there to that cortex, getting up there to those higher levels of thinking, getting up there to where all my logic and reason and problem solving are. When I am not in my body, when I have removed myself, I'm going to have a really hard time getting up to those higher levels of thinking. I'll stay stuck in this, am I safe or am I unsafe loop?
No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm kind of curious because you are a mom and you teach all of this. What can we do in our interactions with our family and our home environments even to help the whole family and maybe our children kind of stay in their bodies and feel safe. Like, obviously, I hope everyone has a safe home on the literal level. But, there's times where, maybe kids are feeling like completely off or stressed in a home environment for various reasons. And I think that we can be more intentional about making our home environment feel like a reprieve and somewhere where you can really let it go or relax.
So my biggest trick is observe, describe, participate. This goes for you and your children. Observe, describe, participate. The most important thing is the best chance we've got is modeling the behavior. No one is influenced by someone telling them what to do. They are influenced by witnessing you do it, by you modeling the behavior. So when I am having a hard time, when I am activated, I'm going to observe something has shifted. I am going to describe. Here's the beautiful part. We don't talk about the story. You said this and I did that. And we are describing our internal experience. We notice a shift, right? I observe a shift. I describe, I feel anger and my fists are clenching up and I want to curl into a ball, right? So my belly feels like it's on fire. So I'm describing my internal experience. And then I'm going to participate. If I want to curl up in a ball, I'm going to curl up in a ball. If I feel like running, I'm going to run in place, right? So we model safe ways to do, if my arms feel like hitting, I'm going to punch the air. I'm going to find a safe way to discharge that energy. So I model that and then I talk him through it when it's him. I observe there has been a shift. So co-regulation means that you have to be connected. You can't match the energy.
Yes. I was like literally having a moment this week where people can read all these parenting advice books and all this stuff. And I was like, I think your ability to stay regulated in your own body when your child is not might be the biggest parenting skill of my lifetime.
It might be the only one. Like we can figure out the rest. But if we match the energy, and this clicked for me, I was raised in a aggressive screaming household. So for me, I'm like, if my end goal is quiet, why would I yell? So I have to first orient him to his space. So I stay connected to myself. And if he is throwing a tantrum and I need to remove myself to do that, then that's what I'm going to do so that I can come back, get down on his eye level. So I'm never standing over him, never. Eye level. And like, hey, what color shirt are you wearing today? I mean, he might be screaming about Fortnite. And I'm like, what color shirt are you wearing today? And he's like, red. It's like, where's your left knee? Like, even if I'm not trying to get him to not be angry. I'm trying to get him to come back. Here's where we are. Hey, did you see what time it is? Like something that is like, can you smell that? Can you hear that out the window? Something to just start that practice. And it might not work beautifully the first 20 times, but on 21, man, you'll find some magic. So, you keep
Yeah.
into the space because it's a skill they have to learn. It's a skill we have to learn. So then it's that same thing. I notice that you're angry. Tell me about what's happening in your body. And I see that your fists are clenched. So you're helping them start to get the language and describe their internal experience. And then we help them find those healthy ways to participate in that. If we try to go to calm, I would bet that in the history of the world, telling someone who is upset to calm down has worked approximately 0 times.
Oh, yeah. None of us get this right as parents all the time. And none of this, even you and me, we practice a lot of this regularly and teach some of it. And I still have my moments. Everybody does. And if my husband tells me to calm down, I've had to tell him when I am calmed down that that's maybe the worst thing he can say. It feels like he's denying whatever emotion needs to come up and through for me. And it makes things worse.
It always makes things worse. We try to go from, that space to calm, and we bypass this whole part of discharging that energy. And then we go to connection, right? So participating, letting that metabolize. And that process takes all of 90 seconds to 2 minutes, somewhere around there, which feels much better than like holding on to it for the next 2 decades.
I agree. Okay, I'm just going to say that back to you because I feel like there's people listening who are probably taking some mental notes. So observe, describe, participate. Okay. From a perspective of, okay, let's say you were going to have an opportunity to contribute to some school curriculum. What are some of the life skills you wish that we just grew up knowing in terms of managing overwhelm and emotional reactivity?
That there is no moral value to emotions, and that your emotions are not character traits.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we've put a high price on certain emotions and a lower one on others. Like, we emphasize the ones that we think are good and we discount the ones that we think are bad. Anger is not inherently bad. Feeling anger does not make you an angry person. We have experiences in my personal life where, my child is being, there's some like emotional abuse things in there. And I feel homicidal rage. That is not a character trait. That does not make me a bad person. That does not make me a murderer. It is emotion that is flowing through my body, and I can discharge that energy, and it does not make me a good or a bad person. So we keep trying to force people into, we want to feel more of these quote unquote good emotions, the more comfortable emotions, the more sought after emotions. And we want to feel less of these others. And in that pursuit, we are not teaching anyone what to do with those very real, very human emotions that they undoubtedly are going to come across. All emotions are a part of the human experience, every single last one of them. So if you are going to be in this human experience, you are going to experience those emotions. And if your whole goal is to not feel them, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I like how your practice of observe, describe also has participate, because it really calls on an action to discharge or address instead of stew and marinate and bury.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very real, very physical experience. Nothing exists just in your head or just in your body. We might talk about them in that manner and we might look at them in that manner. They have never existed separate from each other.
Absolutely. This has been so great. I know we are coming up on time. I always like to end with a reflection. So, in the area of tending to our nervous systems and maybe putting ourselves in a place where we can respond to life with more wisdom, what's one question women could be asking themselves more?
What do I need right now from myself? That is going to bring us back to our internal experience, and in an empowered way. That's like, what's the smallest thing I can do? Do I need to take a sip of water? Do I need to step outside? Do I need to, take an inhale or an exhale? What do I need to do for myself right now?
Beautiful. Melissa, I know that people are going to want to learn more from you. So can you share where we can find you, follow you, and continue to be part of your life?
So all of my social media handles are Reclaiming Melissa. I am on YouTube, From Chaos to Connected with Melissa Romano, and melissaromano.com. So MELISSAROMANO.com.
Okay, great. This was such a meaningful exchange, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.